Voice over IP, or VoIP networks, are increasing in popularity and ubiquity. Commonly deployed in military and DoD, large enterprise, and call centers, VoIP has revolutionized network-based communications. The convergence of voice with traditional data network has allowed for inexpensive long-haul communications with fantastic voice-based services, i.e. speech-to-text, interactive voice response, and data retrieval systems. This convergence of the traditional network with voice services comes with a price, as the network, the traditional attack vector for internet attackers, cybercriminals, now also enables easy access to an enterprise voice network. In January 2012, the FBI and Scotland Yard coordinated a conference call to discuss a growing cyber threat, Anonymous, a loose collective of cyber hacktivists attacking targets at will, with very little attribution as to the team members. The FBI and Scotland Yard spoke over VoIP for 17 minutes. However, within days of the event, the audio of the conference call is posted on Anonymous's website, complete with hacker posturing and chest thumping, while browbeating the authorities for their ineptness.
Gaming site with 32,000 usernames and logins and credit card details, which he's suggesting he's head off. I don't know if that's a job that any of you guys are dealing with, but if it is, we've got a statement, someone admitting to it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We actually do have a pending investigation looking into that compromise. And what was his name? It was a
VoIP security apparently is not high on the FBI or Scotland Yard's priority list. For many reasons, VoIP is an easy target. Primarily, the complete lack of encryption of the real-time transport protocol and the signaling, SIP, H.323, or IAX, allows an attacker to listen to conversations. Secondarily, VoIP networks are not thoroughly separated on the network from the data network, and the use of voice-only virtual LANs on a switch network is not enough to completely isolate VoIP activities. Tertiary attacks include audio injection, signaling attacks, authentication brute forcing, default credentials on web-based administrative consoles on VoIP phones, and VoIP spit, or spam over internet telephony. There exists one particularly troublesome attack vector in which the damage of the prior described attacks is multiplied: the insider threat. Not necessarily an administrator, but a malicious user on the VoIP network who has the leverage to induce a significant amount of threat to an enterprise VoIP network. Norman Hecker was in a bind. His soon-to-be ex-wife and her lawyer were trying to take him to the cleaners during the bitter divorce he was facing over her objections to his gambling habit. Although he had been mostly lucky in the past, he experienced a string of losses that has taken its toll on their savings. In the process of dealing with the stresses of life, he began drowning his sorrows with a steady regimen of alcohol abuse and eventually developed a cocaine habit as well. Financially strapped, but still facing his demons, Norman was desperate to find a way to fund his dependencies and dissolving of his marriage when a solution finally occurred to him. Norman worked as a low-level IT professional for the El Paso, Texas FBI field office, where he was responsible for resolving the basic computer-related problems for the far less technically adept agents. One agent in particular, Joe Hardcase, frequently spoke to his Border Patrol agent brother, John, from the VoIP lines in the office. Norman had overheard the brothers discussing the fact that the Border Patrol lacked the resources to adequately monitor all of the potential areas at once, and that was how the drug shipments were making their way into the country. Norman knew that information regarding what areas of the Border Patrol was monitored and when would be quite valuable to his drug dealer, Pumpkin Escobar. Since Norman was always part of the ESE, the El Paso Security Experts, a recreational hacker group, he knew he was capable of acquiring the information undetected and immediately set about his plan of the attack. First, he simply walked into Agent Hardcase's office during lunch. Flipping over his VoIP phone, he quickly writes down the MAC address of the phone, handily printing it on the manufacturer's label. Norman, back in his office, knew there was a way in which he could intercept VoIP RTP sessions. His low-level IT administration limited him to no console access to servers or network devices. He was very worried about the network intrusion detection systems deployed and had to think carefully about his next move. He knew he needed to figure out the IP address of the SIP registrar and proxy and Agent Hardcase's phone. At a recent meeting of the ESEs, he built an Ethernet LAN tap referred to as a throwing star, a device with 4 Ethernet ports, 2 of which are wired in between the network connection and the target host. The other 2 ports are for monitoring transmit and receive traffic depending upon which port is plugged into one's monitoring device. Quickly, Norman pops the throwing star in between his own VoIP phone and its Ethernet cable. He boots his laptop with the latest Backtrack R2 Hacker Linux distribution and connects the Ethernet connection to the transmit monitor port of the throwing star. Power cycling the phone forces the phone to TFTP the latest config file and register with the SIP registrar. Using Wireshark to capture the traffic, Norman captures the various packet flows, saves them on a USB key, and at the end of the duty day, he heads home. While parsing through the captures from earlier in the day, Norman takes note of a few useful pieces of information. He's able to see the Ethernet source and destination addresses, IP source and destination addresses, UDP source and destination ports, and from these he can determine the subnet of the VoIP network, his phone's IP address. From one frame during the SIP registrar, he's able to determine the UDP, SIP, port, and destination addresses of 5060. And he can tell the authentication scheme, username, realm, nonce value, authentication URI, digest authentication response, and algorithm. He now knows the registrar's IP address, verified SIP signaling, the username, the realm, the nonce, and the MD5 digest.
Norman uses the sipdump command to extract the SIP authentication from the VoIP.pcap into the file out.txt. Next, he uses the sipcrack command and a commonly available word list to cryptographically attack the SIP authentication inside out.txt. In less than 1 second, nearly 70,000 passwords are tried, and a successful decrypt occurs. He now knows the password his VoIP phone uses to register with his registrar. The next day, Norman is ready to attack. He configures his laptop identically to his VoIP phone using the same IP and MAC address. He then configures a soft phone with a cracked SIP authentication and registers a soft phone to counter the FBI's intrusion detection system. Norman is now ready to hunt for Agent Hardcase's VoIP phone's IP address. By scanning the entire subnet, he knows any device which answers will also report its MAC address, which Norman had found written on the bottom of the phone earlier. Norman knows the SIP registrar's IP address is 192.168.2.52, and Agent Hardcase's VoIP phone IP address is 192.168.2.150. The command ethercap allows one to ARP poison the network, forcing all traffic to be transferred through Norman's laptop at layer 2, bypassing all IP access controls. He now has taken control of all traffic entering or leaving Agent Hardcase's VoIP phone.